everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to try to understand something we all use every day, but probably never really think about how it actually works.
Right.
Radio.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn just how far back the science of radio goes.
Oh, absolutely.
So today we're going to go all the way back to the very beginning
Okay.
and trace the development of radio from its earliest scientific origins to its golden age and beyond.
Sounds good.
Our guide for this journey is a fascinating article from PBS called The Development of Radio.
Great source.
Yeah, and as we go through it, I think you'll be amazed by some of the twists and turns and,
The breakthroughs.
yeah, the breakthroughs for sure.
And the setbacks.
Yeah, like for example, did you know that the first wireless broadcasts weren't actually music or voices at all?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so get ready for some serious aha moments as we uncover the amazing story of radio.
I'm ready. What's so fascinating to me is how radio started as a series of these almost accidental discoveries.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like these scientists were piecing together this puzzle
Right.
without even realizing what the final picture was going to be.
Yeah, it's almost like this invisible world was just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
What was that first piece of the puzzle that set everything in motion?
Well, it all began in a physics lab back in the early 1800s.
Okay.
A scientist named Hans Christian Ørsted was giving a lecture demonstrating the flow of electricity through a wire.
Okay.
And just by chance, he happened to have a compass nearby on his table.
Uh-huh.
And suddenly, as the current flowed through the wire, the compass needle twitched.
Really? Just from the electricity?
Just from the electricity. It seems like such a small thing.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was a really huge deal.
Yeah, I bet.
Ørsted had stumbled upon this fundamental connection between electricity and magnetism,
Right.
something that no one really understood before.
Wow.
And this connection, he called it electromagnetism.
So that was the spark, literally.
Huh, exactly.
But how do we go from a twitching compass needle to
Right.
sending voices across the airwaves?
Well, the next piece of the puzzle came courtesy of Michael Faraday,
Okay.
another brilliant mind.
Mm-hmm.
He took Ørsted's discovery a step further.
Okay.
Faraday figured out that you could actually create an electric current in a wire just by changing a magnetic field near it. And this is actually the principle behind electric generators and motors.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much everything that uses electricity today.
Okay, so we have electricity,
Yep.
magnetism, the
Right.
ability to create currents.
Right.
But we're still talking about wires here.
Yeah.
How did those signals break free?
This is where it gets really mind-blowing.
Okay.
Enter James Clerk Maxwell,
Okay.
a Scottish physicist who was a total theoretical genius.
Okay.
He took the work of Ørsted and Faraday,
Huh.
and he created a set of equations that described this whole electromagnetic dance.
Wow.
And get this, his equations actually predicted that electromagnetic disturbances
Okay.
could travel through space as waves at the speed of light.
He predicted this without actually seeing it.
Yep, just using math and his understanding of physics.
That's some serious scientific intuition.
Maxwell was way ahead of his time, but it actually wasn't until about 20 years later
Oh, wow.
that a German physicist named Heinrich Hertz
Okay.
actually generated these electromagnetic waves in his lab.
Uh-huh.
So he proved Maxwell right, showing that these waves could travel through the air,
Uh-huh.
bounce off of things, even bend around corners, just like light waves do.
Okay, that is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah,
So now we have these invisible waves zipping through the air at the speed of light.
right.
But who figured out how to actually use them to send messages?
That would be Guglielmo Marconi,
Okay.
an Italian inventor who was totally fascinated by Hertz's work.
Oh.
He was convinced that these waves could be used to send messages without wires.
Okay.
And he was determined to prove it.
So he's the one who took those waves out of the lab and into the real world.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing this is where the story of radio really starts to pick up speed.
Absolutely. In 1899,
Okay.
Marconi set up this really daring public demonstration.
Okay.
Imagine this. The America's Cup yacht races are happening off the coast of New York.
Okay.
Marconi puts a transmitter on a ship out at sea
Uh-huh.
and a receiver back on land.
Right.
As the races unfold,
Yeah.
he transmits the results in real time using Morse code.
Wow.
People were astounded.
It's amazing to think about those early days, right?
Yeah.
From a theoretical concept to like a live sports broadcast from the middle of the ocean.
It really was a turning point.
Mm.
Marconi's success with that America's Cup demonstration really showed the world that wireless communication was more than just this scientific curiosity.
Right.
He quickly formed his own wireless company. And just 2 years later, in 1901, he achieved something truly remarkable.
What's that?
Transmitting the first transatlantic wireless signal.
Wow.
He sent the letter S in Morse code from England all the way to Newfoundland.
Wow. From a ship to across the Atlantic Ocean.
I know, it's incredible.
The possibilities must have just seemed endless.
Yeah.
But at this point, we're still talking dots and dashes, right?
That's right.
When does the human voice enter the picture?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll talk about next.
Awesome. Can't wait.
For a while, yeah, it was all Morse code. But the dream of sending the human voice wirelessly, that was taking shape.
Right.
And that dream was brought to life by a Canadian-born physicist named Reginald Fessenden.
Okay.
He was convinced that instead of just sending bursts of energy for dots and dashes, you could actually transmit these continuous waves that carry the complexities of sound.
Now that's thinking big. But how do you even begin to tackle a challenge like that? I mean, it seems like a completely different ballgame than Morse code.
It took years of just relentless experimentation. But then on Christmas Eve of 1906, Fessenden made history from his station in Brant Rock, Massachusetts. He broadcast the first long-distance transmission of the human voice in music.
Christmas Eve. I can just imagine families gathered around, maybe by candlelight, listening to this newfangled invention. What did they hear?
Well, quotes vary.
Okay.
But it seems he played a recording of Handel's Largo on a phonograph, read a passage from the Bible, and even played his violin.
He was like the original radio DJ.
Yeah, something like that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How far did his broadcast reach?
People picked it up as far away as Norfolk, Virginia.
Wow.
Over 500 miles.
That's amazing.
Think about that. Sounds traveling invisibly through the air, connecting people across these vast distances.
Yeah.
It must have felt like magic.
It really is mind-boggling when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
You know, we take it for granted now, but this was a revolution in communication.
Absolutely.
So we've gone from dots and dashes to the human voice.
Right.
What were some of the next big leaps that made radio more powerful and accessible to everyone?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles was amplification.
Okay.
Those early signals were pretty weak.
Yeah.
They could only travel short distances.
Right.
Enter Leda Forrest,
Okay.
an American inventor who in 1907 patented something called the Audion.
Okay.
It was a 3-electrode vacuum tube that could take those weak radio signals and boost them dramatically.
So like a megaphone for radio waves.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But wasn't it still pretty hit or miss in those early days?
Yeah.
I mean, did people really gather around to listen to these early broadcasts?
Well, DeForest, he was a true believer in the power of radio as entertainment.
Okay.
In fact, starting around 1910,
Oh.
he actually began broadcasting live performances from the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City.
Opera broadcast live over the airwaves.
I know, it's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah?
What a way to bring culture and entertainment to people who might never have been able to experience it otherwise.
Exactly.
It seems like the seeds of modern broadcasting were already being planted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Those early broadcasts were far from perfect.
Right.
The sound quality was often scratchy and unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
Another big step forward came in 1918,
Okay.
thanks to Edwin Armstrong,
Okay.
brilliant American engineer. He developed something called the superheterodyne circuit.
Superheterodyne. Sounds pretty complicated.
It is quite ingenious, actually.
Okay.
The superheterodyne circuit allowed receivers to be much more sensitive and selective.
Okay.
Think of it like fine-tuning your ears to pick out a single voice in a crowded room.
Okay.
It meant that radios could pick up weaker signals and filter out interference, resulting in much clearer reception.
So that's how we got from those crackling, staticky broadcasts to the clear signals we enjoy today.
Exactly.
But wait, didn't Armstrong also have something to do with FM radio?
Yes, he did.
I know that's known for having much better sound quality.
You're right. In 1933,
Okay.
Armstrong made yet another groundbreaking discovery, frequency modulation,
Okay.
or FM radio.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head.
Uh-huh.
It offered much clearer sound,
Yeah.
especially for music,
Right.
compared to the traditional AM or amplitude modulation.
So why didn't FM radio take off right away? What was the holdup?
Well, that's where the story takes a bit of a dramatic turn.
Okay.
A powerful figure in the radio industry at the time, David Sarnoff, the head of RCA, was heavily invested in AM radio and the emerging technology of television.
Right.
He saw FM as a threat.
Really?
And he actively worked to suppress its development.
Wow. So one person's personal interests actually delayed the rollout of a superior technology?
This is true.
That makes you think about how new ideas aren't always embraced just because they're better.
Yeah.
Sometimes powerful people stand in the way when they have something to lose.
It's a classic example of how technological progress isn't always a straight line. But despite Sarnoff's resistance, Armstrong's FM system eventually won out, becoming the dominant form of radio for music in the decades that followed.
What a story. So we've covered the scientific discoveries, the brilliant minds, the key inventions that made radio possible. But what about the content? When did radio transform into this mass entertainment medium we know and love today?
Well, those seeds were planted with DeForest's opera broadcasts and other early experiments. But the real turning point came in 1920 with the launch of the first commercial radio stations. KDKA in Pittsburgh and WWJ in Detroit.
So this is where things really start to sound familiar. What kind of programming did they offer?
They had a mix of news, music, and even live sporting events.
Oh, wow.
And guess who was a huge proponent of commercial radio? Despite his earlier resistance to FM.
Let me guess. David Sarnoff.
You got it.
Wow.
He was a complex character. Despite his attempts to stifle FM, he was a shrewd businessman who recognized the massive potential of radio to reach a wide audience. And he played a major role in building the RCA and NBC empires, really shaping the future of broadcasting in America.
So he was a visionary, but also in some ways a roadblock to progress.
I guess you could say that.
It's fascinating how those two things can exist in the same person.
It really is.
But getting back to those early commercial stations, wasn't that the beginning of what we call the golden age of radio?
Absolutely. From the late 1920s to the early 1950s. Radio was the dominant form of entertainment in homes across the country. Families gathered around their radios to listen to everything.
Wow.
Comedies, dramas, variety shows, game shows. And, of course, music.
It's like the Netflix of its time. Everyone was hooked on these shows. It must have been such a powerful shared experience bringing families and communities together.
It really was. Radio fostered this sense of connection and community. It's hard to imagine in today's fragmented media landscape. But, of course, the arrival of television changed everything.
But radio didn't just disappear, did it?
Not at all. Radio proved to be incredibly resilient. It adapted and evolved, finding new ways to connect with listeners. You'd focus more on music, news, talk shows, and specialized programming.
And there were still technological advancements happening too, right? Like, wasn't that when stereo sound came into the picture?
Exactly. In the 1960s, the development of stereophonic broadcasting brought a whole new dimension of sound to radio. It was another leap forward in the listening experience.
So we've gone from crackling Morse code to the richness of stereo sound.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing journey.
Absolutely.
But what's next for radio? Where does it go from here?
It really is incredible to see how far radio has come.
It is.
But like you said, it's still evolving. So what's next for this technology that's been connecting us for over a century?
Well, we're in the midst of another radio revolution, and it's all about going digital. Remember those old AM radios with the dial? You had to carefully tune it to find a station? Digital radio is changing all of that.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Is digital radio the same thing as internet radio? I mean, I stream music online all the time.
It is similar.
But not quite the same. Digital audio broadcasting, or DAB, uses digital signals rather than those analog signals of traditional AM/FM radio. It's like the difference between a vinyl record and a CD. Think crystal clear, CD quality sound, without any of that annoying static or interference.
So no more fiddling with the dial.
Exactly.
Trying to find a clear signal. That sounds pretty appealing.
Yeah, definitely a big benefit.
Is that the main benefit of digital radio?
That's a big one, for sure.
Okay.
But DAB can do so much more.
Really? Like what?
It can also transmit additional information, like program schedules, traffic updates, even weather reports.
Wow.
Right to your radio display.
So it's like having a mini computer built into your radio.
Yeah, kind of.
That's pretty futuristic.
It is.
Has this technology been around for a while?
You know, it's been in development since the late 1980s.
Okay.
But it's taken some time to catch on. But in many countries, it's becoming increasingly popular.
So does this mean traditional AM/FM radio is on its way out?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure.
Oh.
I mean, even back in 1998, our PBS article mentions that over 95% of Americans were still tuning into radio at least once a week.
That's a lot of people.
That's a massive audience.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Radio definitely still has a huge reach.
Right.
But with so many ways to listen to audio these days, streaming services, podcasts, satellite radio, it makes you wonder what the future holds.
Yeah.
Can all of these things coexist?
It's a fascinating time for audio.
Yeah.
With digital radio emerging and the media landscape constantly shifting, it's hard to predict exactly what will happen.
Right.
But one thing is for sure. Radio has this remarkable ability to adapt and reinvent itself.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see even more personalized radio stations, catering to very specific interests. Right. Or maybe radio will become seamlessly integrated with other technologies, like our smartphones and cars.
Those are great points.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology.
Right.
It's about how people use it and what they want from it. And who knows, maybe we'll see something entirely new emerge that we haven't even thought of yet.
Well, this deep dive has given me a whole new appreciation for radio.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's amazing to think about its journey from those first crackling signals to the rich soundscapes we experience today.
Yeah, and it's a journey that's still unfolding.
It is.
What role do you think radio will play in your life in the years to come?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
Radio has survived and thrived through so many changes.
It has.
So tune in, stay curious, and who knows what the next chapter of radio will bring.
I'm excited to find out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of radio.